It's really good to be speaking to Nikki Jolly today. Nikki is from hrtoday.co.uk, an HR agency who has so much insightful information to pass on to you. There's lots we're going to be talking about under the guise of HR. Really, what questions to ask potential employees, why you should use an HR agency. We'll be talking about compliance, we're talking about mental health issues, and so much more. Nikki really is a really good expert in this field. Nikki, welcome to Business Questions.
Hi, welcome, David. Thank you. Thank you
Oh,
for having
absolutely.
me.
Oh, it's great to be chatting to you, and you're nice and bubbly and happy, which is fantastic, because it's the only way to be in these current times in this pandemic. I think to go forward. Let me just ask you. It may seem a very basic question, but what does an HR company do?
Wow, what don't we do? Crikey, with a shoulder to cry on, with the people to ask advice. But generally, what we go out to tell people we do is we look after all their HR. So everything we do to point to print, everything's drafted. We make sure that they're compliant. We guide them, support them through the whole life cycle of employees, because ultimately that's what we're interested in, is the employees. If it's a one-man band, they don't need us. But the minute you start looking for employment of other people, that's when you need to bring somebody like us on, who's going to partner up with you and work in collaboration to make sure that you get what you want from your employees. But we also make sure you've ticked all the boxes and you're compliant, but we're also helping you to grow and get the best out of your biggest assets, which is your people.
Yeah, I think compliance is that one issue that, as a, a sole trade or someone starting up in business, it's very easy to hire someone. We're probably going to ask them the wrong questions and make mistakes in our first hires. So actually being invested in an HR company who actually knows exactly what to do, the processes, and can make sure you're fulfilling all your obligations as an employer is absolutely vital. Before we sort of go into the questions we might ask potential interviewees, what are the biggest mistakes you find that the sole traders or small businesses make when hiring staff?
It's very difficult the first time. You're employing for your baby, aren't you? And you've got all this passion. You work 7 days a week. You never switch off as an owner of a business. And you've got that drive. And one of the biggest sort of mistakes owners make is they assume everyone's going to have that passion and drive. And yes, you can find people out there, but ultimately it's not their business. They're coming to work generally because they want to enjoy it. They've got something to add, and ultimately they're there to earn some money. When you're expecting them to do 10, 12 hours a day when they're employed to do 7.5, it starts to cause a bit of friction. So I think it's about realistic targets, expectations, and just being very honest up front about what it is you're expecting them to do at the beginning.
Yeah. So that'd be ideally written down in the job description, I should imagine. But you have a job description. Things do change in this pandemic. I'm sure that lots of people within their organisations have had to use the buzzword at the moment to pivot, to do other things. Is it fair to expect employees to be able to actually muck in and really work as a team and perhaps do things which weren't in their job description?
I mean, there is always that caveat, and any other jobs deemed suitable, which is usually in most job descriptions. But it starts with your job advert and your job description. Don't start recruiting until you've got those. So you're very clear in your head what they're coming in to do. And a job description can be fluid, but explain that at the beginning. If you're looking for someone that's going to muck in and do everything, but they're a task orientated person who come in and only do what's on a job description, you're not a great fit anyway. So it's about the culture, setting the scene, what your values are, and what is ultimately that relationship, that partnership of bringing somebody in. And that's what you need to flush out in the interviews. That's what's really, really important.
And what sort of questions can you ask? Obviously, be not job specific questions, but in general terms, really to ascertain if they will fit into your culture, and any sort of core questions you might ask.
Ask the questions. Are you willing to muck in? At the end of the day, you're my first employee. There's going to be jobs that I've maybe not thought of, but I would, hope that you'll help me, and use an example, use something where as an owner, you've maybe had to bring in an outsource, or get some help from somebody because it's not your forte. And say, for example, I never dreamt that I would need to be doing accounts. I'm not an accounts person, I'm a HR person. But I've had to do it. I've had to learn to do it. You know, if I asked you to do me a spreadsheet for accounts, it's not really a designer's job or whatever job they're recruiting, but would you mind pulling that together? So, you know, give them examples of where you've maybe not thought of everything and you can't. And certainly through this pandemic, there is not one person on this earth that could tell you they'd thought of everything that was going to happen and how long that this would last. Working from home, Zoom, all of these things. So it's just being honest and gauging that that individual is going to work the way you do. If you're a last minute person and want everything done now, how will they cope with that? Are they a task focused person that likes a list and at 5 o'clock they're ready to go home? Is that a real fit? You've got to make some judgments, but you want to get that from conversation, give examples, give scenarios, and get them to tell you how they like to work where they've worked previously.
Yeah, I think this is so important. You know, every single person I speak to, and it really does come down to people having the right hires within your organisation. Now, for myself, as someone who's been a sole trader for 20 years, and I've had staff previously, as viewers will remember. Basically, I've got a book publishing company, and we just get emails coming in asking all sorts of silly questions. And I literally lost the ability to be polite. So I had a politeness officer who was also a PA to help me. And she was absolutely brilliant. She really mucked in and did everything. And I actually, interested, had probably 150 CVs sent in to me. She actually hadn't written hers, which I thought was wonderful. And she was rubbish at typing. She hadn't got those sort of core skills, but that can be taught. But I thought, as a personality, she is just brilliant because she was just happy and smiley and genuinely wanted to help people, which she also did in her community. And to me, that was just the best attribute you could possibly have. So she was a superstar. But when you mention compliance, I mean, I would have no idea what I would have to do to be compliant. Can you give some examples of compliance and things we should be doing, please?
It does change continuously. So last April, the government changed that you must give an employment contract on day one. So the perception out there at the moment is still that you've got 8 weeks because we were in the middle of a lockdown when this came in. So people don't realise that now, with immediate effect from April last year, April the 1st, everybody is entitled to an employment contract from day one. We always recommend best practice when you send your job offer out, send your contract at the same time. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be, aha, I caught you, you've now started and you didn't know that was in your contract. Start that relationship open and honest. Send your contract with your offer letter so that people can read it. And if they've got some questions, they're going to ask you those questions before they resign or before they come and talk to you. So contracts are really, really important. They're mutual both-way relationships that they understand what they're going to get paid, when they're going to get paid, what holidays they're going to get. All of those things are really, really important for both parties to be clear, because disputes happen when people aren't clear and you think one thing and they think of another. So employment contract first, get that out before day one. And as part of your induction, get that signed on day one so that if there's any issues, you can deal with it straight away.
And what
You've
is
then
a reasonable term for, say, a trial period, just to really make sure someone's a good fit for you?
I would always put a probation in. Personally, I always recommend 6 months. I think for 3 months, people can perform. They can be your best employee and suddenly turn. So probation, I recommend 6 months. And I always say do a 1 month, 3 month and 6 month review. Just remember though, if you don't do a review at 6 months and that date passes, by law, they've passed that probation. So whether you've passed them or not, if it was today and I forget to mention it and I see you in the morning and I go, David, I forgot to tell you, it was your probation yesterday. I want to extend it. It's too late. You've already passed. It's beyond the date. So I always say do it early. And if for whatever reason that meeting can't go ahead before that date comes, just drop an email. We're not going to be able to get together to complete your probation. I'm just going to extend it until next week. Put a date in the diary, and then we'll have your meeting and we'll go through your full probation. So always be careful with probation. The difference in probation to not in probation is generally you should go through disciplinary procedures. So you've got a process to go through if it's not going to work. That can be drawn out. It's a long process. It's very detailed, and it can cause issues if really within probation, your trial period, either of you can say, this hasn't worked for me.
Yeah.
So I think probations are very important. You must also remember now that you must get the right to work. So you need all the appropriate paperwork to prove that an employee is allowed to work in the UK, especially with Brexit now. So you need to get all of that in place. I always recommend you get next of kin. You know, God forbid, you've got a duty of care of that person if anything happens. And you need all their bank details and everything else. And you also need privacy notices for GDPR. So they're just the basic compliances that you should put in place from day one.
And if you do have a problem, and you you're at 5 months in 2 weeks, and you have your 6 monthly meeting there, can you just literally say to them, I'm really, really sorry, this isn't working out, you're not the right fit for us, we're not going to continue with our employment? Or do you still have to go through a lengthy process and lots of written documents?
No, within probation, that is the purpose of it. You literally can turn around and say, I'm really sorry, we've given these 5.5 months or however long you've given it. I just don't think this is going to work for me. I'm sorry. And you can let them go. After they've done 4 weeks with you, and it does depend what you put in your contract regarding notice periods. We always say the first 4 weeks, there's no notice period. After 4 weeks, you're legally entitled to a week for every year completed that you've worked, to a maximum of 12. So that's your statutory. So even if you get rid of somebody in probation at 5.5 months, they're entitled to a week's notice. You can either make them work it, or you can pay them, and they're entitled to any accrued holidays and days that they've already worked. So always pay them what they're owed. Don't get into disputes, because unlawful deductions of earnings, it could get you into tribunal, and it just makes it really messy. So keep it clean, keep fair, be honest, and pay people what they're entitled to.
Absolutely. And what are the sort of common mistakes which employers make when making new hires?
Oh, when they're making new hires, I was going to say probation. Usually what happens is they're all glowing and amazing through probation. And then at 9 months, they go, I want to get rid of these people. How do you do it? That's a nightmare. But new hires, I think, is making false promises. I think telling them one thing, and then when they come in, it's a very different thing, or you don't communicate, they're not getting the support and the help that they need. They feel abandoned, especially for business owners. You know, you're bringing someone in that's supposed to help you, but initially it's double the work, because you've got to share your vision, what you're wanting them to do, how you want it done. And some business owners don't get that. They just think somebody's come in and they should just be able to hit the ground running. Crack on, I'm employing you, I'm paying you now, do it. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. The more time you invest at the beginning, the better results you're going to get at the end. So, plan out an induction, give them a schedule, whether it be a week, whether it be 3 months, and let them know when you're going to do things. Yes, expect them to go and do some work, which is great, but be there and support them. And I think that's the biggest thing, is assuming people are mind readers and that they can come in and just do what you want them to do. You've got to invest the time, and communication is key. Ask them, what do you need from me? What am I missing? I've never done it before. I've never employed somebody. Be open, be honest, and be genuine.
That's some absolutely great advice there completely. And it's quite a complicated process. I think everyone's familiar now with the 10,000 hour rule. As a sole trader, you're starting with 0 hours, which seems to me, really should go to an HR agency such as yourself with all that expertise, because hiring someone is costly. If someone comes to you, I don't need to know your figures, but as a general rule, does it work on a set fee basis, or is it on a percentage of their salary?
No, the way we work is we've always done it on a head count basis. So it's up to 10, up to 20, up to 30. And the reason for that is we want to be appropriate, proportionate to your growth. So if you grow, we'll grow with you. We're going to get more work. You're going to need more support. So we do it on a headcount basis. The way we work is it's a 3 or a 5 year contract. Obviously, the 5 year is cheaper. I'm delighted to say we had 100% renewal last year. So we're doing something right. But the way we work is we never want you to worry about picking up the phone. So once you're on one of our services, it's unlimited support. We are only open Monday to Friday, but you can ring and email, and you can even come to our office at no extra cost. It's unlimited, because we would rather know what you're thinking to prevent the problems later. Where, you know, other services, it's you're on the clock, you get so many hours free, but then after that, you're going to get charged. And people panic and they go, I can't afford anymore, I'm not going to do it. So from the very outset, our model has always been, we will always be there for you. We will always give you advice, even if it's not HR advice. If we can support you or point you in the right direction. For example, we don't do payroll. You know, if people want some advice of where to go or how to do it or what to do, we'll guide them. We're there in collaboration with our clients, not for them to be worried, I don't even know if this is HR, I better not ring them. We honestly encourage our clients to be in touch on a regular basis. We're building that working relationship with them.
So that's a set fee they pay you from 1 to 10 to employees, and then 11 to 20, or
Yeah, every month. So it's a monthly cost.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a monthly
Oh,
fixed fee that
right.
you know what you're paying every month. And for that, if you're on the phone every day of the month, then we support you. We'll draft everything to the point of print. As long as it's to do with HR and your people, that could be drafting a communication to your staff. It could be doing salary change letters. It could be new employees. It could be anything to do, you know, appraisal forms. We'll remind you when appraisals are due. We'll remind you when your probations are due, and we'll even send you the form to fill out with your new employee to fill those forms out. We track your holidays, we track your sickness, we update your policies twice a year. So we do whatever it takes. It's literally, you have a team of people working for you. You have a dedicated account manager, but behind that person, you never have to worry about sickness, maternity, shared parental, holidays. You will always have somebody at the end of the phone that can support you.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. It is, and I think for a small business who doesn't want their own in-house HR full time, what an absolute godsend to have the expertise that you're offering. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Well, we do all your admin, we do all your HR, and we even help you with your strategy. So if you're restructuring, if you're doing TUPE transfers, all of that is just the expertise that you have at your fingertips, at the end of the phone, or even face-to-face in the office.
Yeah, oh, absolutely superb. It just, I think that HR probably does give people a lot of headaches. I certainly know a lot of my friends have their own companies, and one of their the biggest nightmares they have is staff. Being able to just get that advice. I think that'd be absolutely
And to do it
fantastic.
properly, you know, everybody says to me, it's all on the internet, I can go and download it. And I'll say, you absolutely can. But how long is it going to take you to do it? How do you know it's right? And is it going to protect you in the areas that you want? And unfortunately, that's the expertise you haven't got. That's what we do day in, day out. We do it quicker because we live and breathe it. And you know you've got the right information in place that's going to mitigate. We work in the way is everything we do is presented in a way that, God forbid, you ended up in a tribunal, we have mitigated as much risk as possible. Because unfortunately, in today's world, you can't stop employees taking people to tribunal. It's free, there's no cost to it anymore, and they can try their luck. So we work on a basis that everything we draft for you is, if the judge looked at that and that's the last piece of paper that they look at, that's everything you've done to mitigate the risk for that employee and to demonstrate you've tried to do the right thing.
And this also brings me on to another question that obviously we don't want to have a misfit in our hires. Have you ever had a situation where you've had a misfit with a client and actually you didn't want to work with them anymore?
We have, I've got to say, it's only happened the once. We had a client that started off great. They were very demanding, which is fine because people want the value for money and they want everything yesterday. You know, they've worked for years without anything, but suddenly they're paying you and they want everything. And we can cope with that. And generally we, you know, work with all of our clients in the way that they like to work. We adapt. and we work to their best strengths. But one particular client stopped taking advice, would do their own thing, wouldn't listen to what we were advising, wouldn't let us help mitigate. And then when it all went wrong, they kept coming back to us, and it was taking us so much time that in the end, when they came to renew, we actually wrote to them and said, you come into the end of the contract, please let us know how we can help you in the next 3 months, transfer everything back to you and set you up so that you've got everything that you need. And we did it nicely. We split amicably, but we didn't ask them to renew with us. So it's only the once, but it's not worth it for my team. I've got to look after them. They're going to look after you. So I've got to look after them. And they were pulling their hair out every time we tried to, well, I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it this way, but that's not right. Yeah, but I don't care. I'm just going to do it. And then they wanted us to pick the pieces up. And it's got to be a fair partnership. You know, we're very reasonable. We'll always say, we'd recommend you do this, but if you do this, the risk associated is this. We'll help you because we want to mitigate everything down. They weren't giving us that option. They were just going off and doing it and then leaving the mess for us to pick up. And to be honest, it wasn't worth it for anybody. So.
And then how do you motivate your staff to keep them engaged and happy? And obviously, I imagine you have a very, very low churn rate. It sounds like a wonderful company to actually work for.
Well, I have to confess, I did steal one of my employees from my husband's business. She's technically been with the family now 14 years. I've only been running 10 years, and she's been with me 7. So yes, but we're still together married, and we still have her as an employee. So it was all good. My team love food. Just bribe them with food. I tell you, I'll get lunch today. You can have what you want. Suddenly, it's party time. It's been a little bit more challenging this year with everything that's going on. But when we can, we go out and do bowling nights where we get everybody together and have a bit of a competition against my husband's business, my business. But generally, anything that involves food, they're just happy.
Well, and me as well. I revolve around food and whiskey and wine in moderation, of course. We have
Well, yeah, of course.
And what about I mean, something that's become perhaps more at the forefront of people's minds now is mental health in the workplace. Is this something you also advise companies on? Because for old established companies, you know, we do have a mentality, let's get on with it, you know, don't be a snowflake. But I'm guessing you can't be like that anymore. You have to have some empathy with your employees and have some practices in place.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, first of all, depending the severity of it, it's a protected characteristic, which, you know, you have to be doing the right things. You've got a duty of care of your employees. So we obviously get lots of inquiries about that. We do have a training manager that can help support organisations. That's not included in the service training, but we offer it as a separate service. And she can train supervisors on how to handle it, what they can and can't do. Because the biggest mistake supervisors end up doing, or managers, is they think they've got to become the counsellor, the guidance. And at the end of the day, you're not trained, you're not qualified to do that. So it's knowing what to do and how to signpost somebody without getting yourself in a mess of suddenly going, well, tell me all about it. And you're sitting there thinking, I don't know what I can say now. I don't know what to do. So we guide supervisors and managers, and we also do training for employees. We're not enough to think that there are some people that play on this card, and it's very difficult to define, but there are ways to manage that. Thankfully, it's few and far between that would play on the fact of mental health, because it is very serious, and you know, there is lots of help out there, and it's knowing how to handle that in a way that you're not being played, but at the same time you are demonstrating support. But I think the key message is you're not a counsellor, so don't get involved in it. Just ask them what help they need and help them to support and point them in the right direction. I mean, with our clients, there's lots of charitable organisations, there's lots of help out there. And what we would do is signpost them to the right organisation that can help them. And that's the best advice you can give for anybody. And get them to go to the GPs and things like that. It is such a big issue now. And I think it's going to become even worse with what we've been through the pandemic. So having an awareness of that is crucial for all business owners, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's very true, especially now there's going to be so many issues, so much hardship going on in understanding of the current situation. Do you think that companies will actually now not directly employ a counsellor, but have a counsellor, not on speed dial, but you know what I mean? They have a counsellor which will offer as a service, as a benefit to their employees.
Yeah, I mean, we've got lots of different options. We have some clients that actually pay for 1 or 2 days a month where our coach, our counsellor, will go on site and they book a slot. So they get half an hour or an hour, and the employers pay for it. The employees go knowing it's confidential. And I have to say, it's usually bigger organisations because of the cost associated to it, but that service is available out there. EAP, employee assist programs. So companies are now looking for employee assist programs that offer the counselling, usually over the telephone. It can become face-to-face. So there's lots of different options. I know a lot of companies now, if you have a death in service policy in place for your employees, can sometimes come with a free employee assist program. So, you know, for not a lot of money, you can be offering your employees a benefit, but they also get this free counselling line that can help them with legal, mental health, and all of those things. So there are lots of different options to help. And, you know, at the end of the day, if you're a one-man band that's got your first employee, you're probably not going to go to those extremes. The reality is GPs can help, you know, guide your employees to go and speak to their GP to get some support and counselling. They offer free counselling for so many weeks. So there is so much out there, and the key is just to ask the right person to how you can help, really.
Absolutely, completely agree. Coming back to business, and someone has their own company, I think one of the misconceptions of people who have perhaps been working in the corporate world in 2020 or for an SME, they very unfortunately become made redundant, and they're then going to go solo in their own business. And I think just really giving them the reality, because previously they would have gone and done their job, come home and gone to sleep and socialized. But actually, as someone who's running their own business, self-employed, the work element is actually only one aspect. You still have to come home and do the marketing, the sales, the accountancy, the HR. When you started your business, I mean, generally, how hard were you working?
Oh gosh, my daughter was very young. I was made redundant. I used to work in the oil and gas sector, and our refinery went into administration. So literally, I'd gone from working for a global organisation to suddenly having nothing. And it was scary. It was frightening. I didn't really know what I was doing. Our daughter was very young. And what I would do is I would work during the day while she was at nursery or whatever. We would then do family tea. And then I'd sit in a little box bedroom upstairs, and it would be about 1 o'clock in the morning. How productive and how relevant I was doing, I'm not really sure, but the mindset was, I've got to work or else this will never work and I'll never get any business. It is really tough being on your own. There's lots of networking. I know a lot of it's on Zoom at the moment, but I have to say a lot of support came from networking, asking other business owners what they were doing, understanding how they do it. 10 years on, we've had our 10th anniversary. I'm now in a position, thankfully, where I'm able to outsource some of the things that I'm not so great at. So I'm not a great bookkeeper, accountant. So I can honestly say now I've outsourced bookkeeping. I get a couple of days a month where the lady looks after all my finances for me. We have a monthly meeting. I'm in control, but I'm not having to do it. I've also recently appointed an outsourced marketing lady who at the moment is working 2 days a week for me. And that will reduce to 1 day a week because she's just started. I have a PR company that works for me. But all of these things, you may not do greatly, but anything is better than nothing. You've got to do something. But what I would say is I wish I'd learned before 10 years my own lesson to outsource it and get the expertise. And it comes down to being able to afford it and priorities. Do you employ another team member or Do you get rid of a lot of the work that you're capable of? So, I suppose my own advice was look at it earlier, look at what's causing you the bigger problems, that you sat on the sofa watching telly, spending hours getting frustrated and not engaging with your family, and just look at what that might cost for a couple of £100 a month to get somebody to do your bookkeeping. Could just save you the fact you forgot to invoice Bob last month because you'd forgotten all about it and you didn't write it down. So my learning in 10 years is, don't just look at HR, and HR can take hours and you still don't know you're getting it right. But outsourcing in itself, I think since the pandemic, is a bigger thing because it's cheaper, but you're buying in the expertise, you're buying in the bit you need, not the rest of it. And it takes the headache away from you because they do it better than you, because that's what they do. That's their job. So, I'm all about HR and obviously outsource that, but there's so many other areas that in today's world you can outsource, and it just gives you a bit of your life back because you can work 24/7 all the time, and you've got to put it into perspective.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And this is actually the common theme that runs across all the interviews that I'm doing. And something I'm guilty of, I know I should do, is to actually outsource. And everyone gets that stage where they do it. And that's when the growth of their company really, really happens, or they free up time for their family. And I always say, if you're hiring someone 2 days a week or 1 day a week to do your accounts, for instance, which is for us boring, sorry accountants out there, not something I particularly enjoy. But if I spent those 8 hours purely on marketing my business, I'm pretty sure I could generate enough business to cover that accounting fee and a lot more, especially in the long-term value of each client. It's developing that mentality, which is so integral. And I think you've mentioned on two of the biggest things in business: the right people and outsourcing when it becomes too much for you to do, or you don't understand it. And that includes when you've grown your business to a certain level. Even if it's a part-time basis, getting an FD who can actually prepare proper management accounts, so you can really drill down into your business and understand it, and make economies there, or make changes to actually make your bottom line so much better. Nikki, we're going to wrap up there, but just before we do you have any other golden nuggets, any gems of business advice that you've learned in the 10 years you've been running your company?
Keep developing, I think, is the key. You can get into a rut that you're running a business and you don't develop your own skills, and you can get left behind. It doesn't matter what specialism you're in. It's important to invest in yourself. It's absolutely important to have downtime. And if you've got a family, they're not going to wait. They're going to grow up and leave you behind. So balance it. And, we've touched on what's stopping that happening. Be realistic and look at it. I've recently just done the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business course, and I can honestly say it's transformed my life and my business. It was amazing, and that didn't cost me anything. So there are training, other than time. I appreciate time does cost money, but in terms of investment, so there are lots of things out there to help you. You can learn a lot from other business owners. So just sit back and reflect and go, what am I good at? What am I not good at? What are my targets? And where would I like to be in 6 months? What does that look like? And just plan, have a vision. That's all I can say, is have a vision and work towards it. Because if you don't have a vision, you'll keep doing what you've always done and nothing will change.
This course sounds fantastic from Goldman Sachs. I'm actually going to look at that right now. We'll put a link on screen as well where people can access that, because when you hear someone who's been in business and successful in business for 10 years saying it's almost sort of life-changing in what they've learned, then we have to take note of that and get on it and see what it's about, and actually action what is said. Because another thing that I remember someone telling me when I was investing in myself years ago, there's a room of 30 of us, we spent thousands of pounds on this course. So, 2 of you will actually implement what you're being taught. The rest of you here just to feel good about yourself that you've actually done the course. It's doing it, which is absolute key. And as you say, if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got. You have to make those changes and not feel that you know everything, because clearly we don't. There's people out there earning millions, billions, and selling their company, and that's what business questions is actually about, tapping into other people's mindsets on how to be successful. And you've actually opened up my mind today in terms of HR. And when we do eventually hire people, I will certainly look at outsourcing that probably to yourself when we get onto that, because people buy from people, and you come across as a very genuine and a very warm person you actually want to do business with, and someone you can actually pick up the phone with. Nikki, I've got this problem. Oh man, can you help me? And your help, or one of your colleagues will, and the problem's gone, and I can focus on sales and growth. So, Nikki, thank you very much indeed for your time today. So we put your details in the description. They'll also be on the screen right there below my fingers, hopefully. And I wish you every success going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And the same to everybody listening to this, good luck, and just go and do your best. That's all anybody can ask of you. So enjoy life. It's good.